Now let's also bring you updated with an international story, one that is of utmost importance and has been hitting the headlines not just in the United States of America, not just in Minnesota, but also around the world. Because every time there is a killing of an African American by the hands of a police officer in America, these are the scenes. A police station being burned down last night in Minnesota. 500 National Guards from the city, from the state, being deployed across the city to prevent looting, to prevent stealing, to prevent riots. There we go. That's it. A Minneapolis police station on fire last night as thousands descended on the city to protest the killing of George Floyd. The video is absolutely heart-wrenching. To watch this police officer, with his knee on the neck of George Floyd, an African-American man. And George Floyd is saying, mustering the breath every few seconds to say that I can't breathe. Such common words when it comes to the African-American community across in the United States. For the scores of killings that have taken place when it comes to African-American men at the hands of white police officers. I can't breathe. People had mobile phones shooting the incident. People had it. People were saying, those people who were shooting it, who were recording it on their mobile devices were saying, let him go, he can't breathe. Just put him in the truck, just arrest him. He can't breathe. After being taken to the hospital, George Floyd died. How do we, racism can spread. It's not something that you're born with, it can spread. So you might ask, why are we going to be talking about this conversation? Why are we having this conversation here in Trinidad and Tobago? We've got so many races here. We all live together on a day-to-day basis. Why are we having this conversation this morning on the Morning Brew? How do we prevent, no pun intended, watching the fire in the left of the screen, but how do we prevent the fire from spreading, the fire of racism? We've got the right man to talk to about this morning. Professor Selwyn Cudjoe joins us via phone. Professor Cudjoe, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Hello, good morning, Ryan. Nice speaking with you.
Very happy to hear from you. We're down this road again, and I'm going to say we because racism is a we problem. It's not just an American problem, it's a we problem. It's a humanity problem because it's not just in America. Racism exists. It exists here in Trinidad and Tobago. It exists around the world. We're here at this juncture again. What have you made of this George Floyd killing? Because 2 months ago, Ahmaud Arbery, who I'm sure that you know and that you've heard of this case, was gunned down by 2 white men.
Well, it may be 3. 3 were there, but is that right?
3 have been charged, correct. What do you make of this juncture that we're back here at again, Professor Cudjoe?
There's nothing to make about it. America is a racist society, and one's chances are determined by one's race. If one is black, one stay back. And that this has been going on for 3 or 400 years. So this is just simply the continuation of an attack against African-American men and women. But the only difference now is that we have cameras which could in fact record what is taking place. But even though you had a camera recording George Floyd saying, I can't breathe, and call upon his mama, no one has yet been charged. Had I walked up and shot a white man or a cop, I would be in jail right now. It tells you about the 2 systems, one for whites, one for blacks. You see it also in the COVID situation. A disproportionate amount of black men and black people are just dying. So America is an unequal society. But most importantly, it is a racist society. By that I mean that one's life's chances is determined by the color of one's skin. If you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, stay back. Because what's going to happen, you will be killed.
Let's get to the meat of the matter here, Professor Cudjoe. The reason that white police officers and white men can feel that they can go around doing this has to be because they feel that they have some type of backing from some type of leadership in America. And I'm not just pointing to the Donald Trump administration. It could be at state level as well. But something is enabling these men to think that it's okay to do it. And if they do it, they're going to get away with it.
See, what you forget and fail to remember, see, you're trying to make the true connection, If a society as a human being has certain social patterns and behaviors, from the inception of the United States, black people have been slaves. They've been enslaved. In fact, I have my niece who is reading right now. Go and read the life and times of Frederick Douglass. We have been slaves. We have been brutalized. We have been imbruted, made to feel like brutes. The whole trajectory of American life has been to make black people feel like brutes, to be bought and sold like cows and pigs and so on. That is ingrained within the social psychology of white people. And simply what they simply do is acting out on those deeply enshrined beliefs and feelings. I'm saying the only difference now is that people are now taking out shots and seeing them. Well, if they were not somebody taking a shot and cell phones recording that, these guys would have walked away scot-free, as would have happened in the case of Ahmaud Arbery. So it's nothing new. It's just the continuation of a pattern of disregard for black lives. It's just that Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
In the United States, black lives do not matter, and if you are a black male, it is worse. You're at the bottom of the totem pole.
So how much has the politics of the last 4 years enabled this to continue and spiral out of control more than ever? Yes, it happened under the Obama administration, but how much has the politics of the last 4 years enabled this even further?
I would say very, very slightly. I would not put all the blame on the last 4 years of Trump. I mean, I'm saying it's a social disease that goes back. From 1900 to 1925, you had the most lynchings in the United States. The most lynchings in the United States. Right now, you've got a situation, and you see it in terms of, I said, look at the COVID deaths. More black folks are dying. More black men are dying. Look at the health facilities. In other words, the system, I mean, Trump, yes, certainly is a racist, and he enables. But I don't know if it's fair. I mean, I don't want to say fair, but I think it's simply the continuation of a pattern. The only difference now, you have a guy who would be widely enabling this. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, who's Trump's hero? Trump's hero is a fellow called Andrew Jackson, 1835, President of the United States, who in fact removed the Indians from the nations and put them and mashed them into concentration camps. That's the hero of Trump. So Trump's behavior is consistent, but it's consistent with a pattern that is deeply ingrained within the hearts and minds of white America. And of course, why these guys behave that way is that white supremacy and white privilege allows them. I mean, take the guys, for example, Christian Cooper. He goes to do his bird watching in Central Park. A white woman, he tells a woman to leash a dog, and she can't call the cops because this black man is about to rape me. Which isn't a rape, but that's it. So it's something that's ingrained deep within the psyche of the nation.
How can, this is another city in the United States is burning down this morning because of this. This is not the first time that this has happened, and these are the consequences of it happening. When white police officers take down black men, cities burn, riots happen, looting happens. How much more of this has to happen before action is taken at state level and at federal level to curb these things?
No, well, I mean, the little things could have happened. If you had, in fact, arrested that guy the day he was fired, and said, listen, you're under arrest, there's enough cause, there's probably cause, there is probably cause to suggest that you may, even though we saw the video and so on, because they've seen the videos, looking at those videos that taken from those side stores, there's enough probable cause to think that now you're not saying that you're guilty. There's enough probable cause to say that, and you arrest that person, it would have stopped all of that rioting and does that burning last night. But they were not even willing to do that. And in fact, the prosecutor who made the statement, who said, and he said he misspoke, we don't have enough evidence yet, and then the other side of the story, that's the problem. That is the problem. When men and prosecutors understand that they must carry out their jobs without fear or favor, whether you're black or white, then you have a turning point. Until then, you got some trouble. Even now, in the giving out of funds, with the COVID. The Democratic states are not getting much money. The southern states are getting the money. The white states are getting the money. And so the pattern continues. The conglomerates are getting the money. There's a bias towards the privileged, towards whiteness, towards white privilege. And as long as that continues, and there's no reason to believe it's going to stop now, that will continue to happen. So it's not an aberration that every year or so, these things just happen and keep on happening.
Professor Cudjoe, forgive me, I want to bring it home a little bit. Is racism and race very much alive in Trinidad and Tobago politics?
Politics? Well, yes, we know that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's no. You got to be careful between racism and race-based politics. I think that the PNM is an Afro-centered party, as the UNC is an Indian-centered party. What we've got to do, we've got to keep on talking, and my article on Sunday is going to deal with that somewhat. But the point is that, yes, there are those biases, and there are those in the sense that one group represents one, group, etc. We've got to have much more talking. One of the things I think is very bad in Trinidad, we don't talk about it. There's no open forum to talk about racial or ethnic relationships. It's silent. And what I'm fearing, and I just did a piece, a 3-part series, on the whole question of, Munilao and bringing up, and then, of course, Sadama, the whole question of the recalcitrant minority by Williams and all that kind of stuff, which is a lie, and we keep on repeating those lies. In fact, we are not hitting at the center. Even with this road committee, the committee that is meant to put us back on track to where we were prior to the COVID, there's no talk about the question at the end of the day. Economics are about social relations, how people relate to one another. If you want to see the poverty of black people, look what happened at Living Waters. So the fact of the matter is, yes, I think at base there are those, I want to say there's racism as such. I want to argue that there. I'd say there's certain biases which needs to be dealt with, but unfortunately, we're not dealing with it. You can't tell me one committee in Trinidad and Tobago that deals with the question of racial relationships and how the different groups and religions relate to one another. Patrick Manning, during his term, had a race committee in which I was a member. And what that race committee did, you at least acknowledge that there were differences and let us talk about it. If you were to ask me, I think that such a committee should be reestablished. We have different representatives from different races and different ethnic groups and different regions who come together at least once a month.
Right. Professor Cudjoe,
to talk about these matters.
Professor Cudjoe, can you just stay on the line for me, please? Don't go anywhere, because we're getting some breaking news that a CNN crew has actually been, we're understanding that a CNN crew has actually been arrested at the site while covering the protests in Minneapolis. Yeah, I believe that those are the images right now coming out of CNN moments ago. Minnesota State Patrol has arrested CNN crew. Breaking news on CNN as we speak. That happening moments ago. So we're actually getting some live images. We're going to keep those live images on. Professor Cudjoe, please continue with your point. I'm sorry about that.
So what was it? What you were questioning?
Right. So I was asking you about it, but what do you think now are the issues in Trinidad and Tobago politics? Because we are in a general elections year. Things can get a little bit heated.
Well, I think that I would say again, there would be always the questions of what group you like and what you think they should be doing. If you ask me, I think the major problem or the major challenge, in Trinidad and Tobago elections are what kinds of provisions are being made for black people who are at the bottom of the economic ladder. That's point one. And point two, how do we talk about racial reconciliation? I think those are the two major issues for me.
What do you make of Dr. Rowley's leadership during this COVID-19 pandemic?
What I make of what?
Dr. Rowley's leadership during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, I think he's great. I think he's done a fantastic job. I think he's done a fantastic job in terms of getting hold of this COVID-19 and, of course, leading society. I think he's done a fantastic job.
I also want to ask you very quickly before we go, Professor Cudjoe, We are in an elections year, and we've just seen over the last 24 hours Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley releasing a scathing remarks towards the media here in Trinidad and Tobago, questioning the integrity and independence of journalists when it comes to their owners and who owns them and the companies that they work for. What do you make of that? I'm not sure if you were privy to those remarks and if you may have...
Well, I read it this morning. And what's your question?
What do you make of those remarks? Is it as Matt has put out a statement saying that, is it just we can expect such statements in an election year coming down to the end of a 5-year term? What do you make of such remarks towards the media community in Trinidad and Tobago?
I don't know what Keith's motivation is. The Prime Minister must have had his motivation. I do not accept to share his views that the media is biased. I think the media, and of course, I do accept the view that he has the truth. I think truth is a commodity that we arrive at. So I think each entity has its own interests at heart, one's own best interest. So just as you would probably argue the media has its own interest at heart, so does the government. There cannot be a presumption that the government is without interest and everybody has an interest. So I think, the Prime Minister has the right to express his views. I do not agree with him. But I think that's how politics go. He has his views, we have our views, and we'll see what happens.
All right, Professor Selwyn Cudjoe, thank you very much for taking our call on two very important matters this morning.
All right, my man. Thank you so much, Ryan. I hope you have a good show.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Author and scholar, Professor Selwyn Cudjoe, talking to us this morning as Minneapolis burns this morning. A CNN crew, breaking news coming out of Minnesota that a CNN crew has actually just been arrested in Minnesota. I'm actually following on Twitter right now Abby Phillip from CNN. She tweets, "Whoa, police in Minneapolis just arrested Omar Jimenez live on CNN. What is going on? Our camera crew and Omar's producer also now being arrested." Those are live images coming out of CNN as we speak. We'll continue updating you on this story as this crisis unfolds in Minnesota.